kind of place most people only heard about when a map zoomed out too far. It sat on the quiet edge of human space, far from busy trade routes, far from politics, and far from anything exciting. If someone asked the average traveler about it, they usually said the same thing. Oh, that little farming colony? The weak one? People talked like Eden 4 was a joke, a tiny outpost that Earth kept out of pity, a place where nothing important would ever happen. But to the people living there, Eden 4 was home. It wasn't rich, and it wasn't strong, but it had open skies, wide farmlands, clean water, and a peaceful routine. The buildings were simple, mostly metal and stone, with solar panels on their roofs and dust on their walls. Kids rode old hoverbikes through the fields. Workers gathered at sunrise to start their shifts. Families shared dinner outside when the weather was good, watching the twin moons rise. The colony's government building was only 2 floors tall. The security force was just a group of volunteers who trained once a week. Their weapons were old models, repaired so many times that most people joked they were held together by tape and hope. Eden 4 was safe, but only because no one ever bothered to attack it. It offered nothing worth stealing. Everyone on the colony knew they were considered weak, but they didn't take it personally. They had learned to live with small things, simple things. Life was good, even if the rest of the galaxy didn't think much of them. There was one person, though, who didn't quite fit into the peaceful picture of Eden 4. She lived alone, far from the town center, in a quiet house surrounded by wind turbines. People knew her simply as the old researcher. Though she wasn't very old, she kept to herself, rarely visited markets, and spoke only when needed. Most colonists said she used to work for Earth Command, but no one knew details. She never talked about her past, and they respected that despite her quiet life. The colony trusted her. She had helped fix their power grid more than once. She had repaired broken farming machines, reprogrammed old drones, and even taught the school children science when the regular teacher fell sick. She was strange, yes, but kind. And she wanted peace just as much as everyone else. The colony was small enough that people recognized every face. They worked together, helped each other, and shared whatever they had. That unity was their real strength, even if outsiders couldn't see it. To them, Eden 4 looked weak because it had no army, no money, and no advanced technology. But the people there didn't care about proving anything to anyone. They just wanted a quiet life. Every evening, the colony slowed down earlier than most planets. Eden 4 had a strange calmness to it. The wind carried the smell of soil and crops, the sky filled with orange colors, and the colony's lights blinked on one by one. People sat outside their homes, talking about their day, or simply enjoying the silence. There was nothing loud, nothing dramatic. Life followed a gentle rhythm. The children were the loudest part of the colony. They laughed and played with old robot toys, chasing each other between houses. They always asked questions about space, war, or faraway star systems, but adults rarely had exciting stories to tell. Eden 4 wasn't that kind of place. Sometimes, ships from bigger colonies visited for trade. Their pilots usually looked around and shook their heads as if they didn't understand how anyone could live somewhere so simple. One trader once laughed and said, "If someone attacked Eden 4, you all would be gone in 5 minutes." The colonists only smiled politely. They didn't like conflict. They didn't want to argue. But underneath those smiles, everyone carried a small, unspoken truth. They knew they couldn't defend themselves. They had no shields, no warships, no specialized soldiers. If anything ever threatened them, their only hope was to evacuate or hide underground. That knowledge sat quietly in everyone's mind, a distant worry they never wanted to face. Still, no one thought an attack would ever come. Why would it? Eden 4 had no gold, no rare minerals, No military base, nothing useful. It was just soil, farms, and peaceful people. Everyone believed they were too small to be a target. Being ignored by the galaxy felt like a kind of safety. The governor of the colony, a calm, steady man who had worked as a teacher before taking the job, often said, "No one bothers the small fish." It became a saying on the colony. People repeated it whenever someone worried too much. It helped them sleep peacefully at night. Life continued like this for years. Day after day, the colony remained unchanged. There were no big surprises, no danger, no reason to fear anything beyond their skies. Even the retired researcher seemed to fade into the background, becoming just another quiet part of Eden 4's routine. She grew vegetables, studied old data files, and kept her strange equipment locked away in her workshop lot. Sometimes children whispered rumors about her. They said she had invented secret machines. They said she had once stopped a meteor all by herself. They said she knew how to build weapons that could protect entire planets. But adults brushed these rumors off as fantasy. No one thought a peaceful colony needed anything more than tractors and water pumps. But the truth was more complicated. The researcher hadn't come to Eden 4 by accident. She had left Earth Command after a disagreement about her work, something big, something dangerous. She wanted to forget all that. She wanted a quiet life, far from the noise of war and politics. Eden 4 gave her that peace, and she never planned to leave. She also never planned to use her old knowledge again. For years, nothing changed. The colony stayed calm. The stars above stayed quiet. And people continued living their peaceful routines. But peace can be fragile in the vastness of space. Sometimes, danger comes not because a place is valuable, but because it is easy to attack. Sometimes, the smallest, quietest planets become targets simply because no one expects them to fight back. And on one quiet evening, as the sun set and the colony lights blinked on, Eden 4 had no idea their simple world was about to shift forever. They didn't know that ships were already approaching from the darkness above. They didn't know their reputation as Earth's weakest colony had drawn attention from something far more dangerous than traders or travelers. They didn't know they were standing at the edge of a moment that would change everything they believed about themselves. But for now, in these final peaceful minutes, they were still just people living their quiet lives, laughing, talking, and trusting that tomorrow would be the same as today. They had no idea how wrong they were. The evening on Eden 4 started like any other day. The sun dipped low, stretching the shadows of the houses across the dusty ground. The last few workers finished their tasks and walked home slowly, talking about crops, repairs, and the usual small struggles of life. Children chased each other near the old water pump, shouting and laughing. Everything felt calm, almost sleepy. No one expected anything unusual. At the colony's control station, 2 volunteer watchkeepers were finishing their shift. They were not soldiers, just regular people who took turns watching the scanners. Most days, they saw nothing except distant asteroids and the reflection of Eden 4's 2 moons. They often joked that the scanners were more bored than the humans using them. On this evening, one of the watchkeepers leaned back in his chair, chewing a piece of dried fruit. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of the screens. The air felt warm and still. For a long time, nothing changed. Then the scanner made a sound it had not made in years. A sharp tone, quick and high, almost like a warning cry. The watchkeeper sat up straight, confused. He tapped the screen. The beeping grew louder, repeating again and again. He called the second watchkeeper over, and both stared at the scanner. A cluster of objects, large, fast, and moving in formation, was approaching the colony from the dark side of space. Not at first. They thought it might be a trade fleet. But the shapes were wrong. Too many ships. Too tight a formation. Too silently approaching. They watched for another minute, hoping the scanner was mistaken, but the readings were clear. Something unknown was heading straight toward Eden-4. The watchkeepers looked at each other nervously. Should they call the governor? Should they wake the security volunteers? Should they prepare for evacuation? The colony handbook didn't say what to do for a situation like this. It didn't even imagine such a situation could happen. One of them finally pressed the emergency alert. A low alarm echoed through the colony, soft enough not to cause panic, but serious enough that people immediately stepped outside their homes. Looking around in confusion, the governor was at home having dinner when he heard the alert. He stood up quickly, wiped his hands, and rushed out the door. The alarm meant unknown contact. In the 20 years he had lived on Eden-4, he had never heard it once. He hurried to the control station, and as soon as he walked into the room, the watchkeepers pointed at the scanner. The governor's face tightened when he saw the incoming ships. He didn't recognize the design, but he understood one thing clearly. They were not human. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Send a signal to them," he said. "Identify us." Maybe they're friendly. They sent a message into the void. For a long moment, there was no answer. The ships continued moving closer, silent and cold. The governor's heart thumped heavily as he watched the scanner. Finally, a response arrived, but not a friendly one. It was a broadcast, rough and broken, filled with static. The voice on the transmission was deep, unfamiliar, and unfriendly. It didn't introduce itself, didn't explain who they were. It simply announced that the ships were landing and the colony must prepare to surrender its resources and equipment. The watchkeepers froze. The governor felt a chill run through him. Eden-4 had nothing worth fighting over, yet these strangers were coming anyway. Outside, people gathered in small groups, looking up at the night sky. Someone pointed at streaks of light descending toward the upper atmosphere. At first, the crowd whispered that it might be a meteor shower, but the straight lines, the organized pattern, and the unnatural speed made it clear these were ships entering the sky. A soft unease spread through the colony. Parents picked up their children. Workers stopped talking and stared upward. Even the animals in the farms grew restless, making low sounds as if sensing something wrong. The governor returned to the central courtyard, where more people were gathering. He spoke calmly, telling them they should stay indoors until more information came. His voice trembled slightly, but he did his best to stay composed. The colony needed someone stable to look at, someone who made them feel like everything was still in their control. Deep down, he knew they were not in control at all. The colony's volunteer guards quickly spread out, checking buildings, preparing old shields, and making sure communication devices were working. They had never trained for something like this, but they moved with determination. People who grew food, fixed machines, and taught kids were suddenly trying to act like defenders. The governor hurried through the crowd and made his way toward the isolated home far beyond the colony's edge. He needed to speak to the one person who might know what to do, the quiet researcher who had once worked for Earth Command. She was in her workshop when he arrived, studying a broken cooling unit. When she saw him step inside, breathing hard, she knew something was wrong before he even spoke. He told her everything, the scanner readings, the message, the approaching ships. She listened carefully, her expression calm but serious. She asked for details, the number of ships, their formation, their behavior. Her questions were sharp, technical, like someone who had studied threats her whole life. When he finished explaining, she quietly walked to a panel on her wall and pressed a hidden switch. A screen lit up, showing a map of the colony with faint lines running beneath its surface. The governor had never seen anything like it. She looked at him with a steady, almost sad expression. "I hoped this day would never come," she said softly. He didn't understand what she meant. He only understood that they were in danger, and the colony had no way to defend itself. She explained that she had once worked on a defensive system, a concept meant to protect small human settlements like Eden 4, a system designed to give weak colonies a chance to survive if they were ever targeted. Earth Command had stopped the project because they thought it was too unpredictable, too powerful, too risky to control. But she had kept the research, and she had built a small version here, beneath the soil of Eden 4, woven quietly through old power lines and hidden generators. She never activated it. She never wanted to use it. She hoped Eden 4 would stay peaceful forever, and her forgotten invention would die quietly with her. But now, ships were approaching. Strangers were landing, and the colony had no other hope. The governor stared at the map of hidden energy lines beneath the colony's surface. He couldn't believe she had built something like this without anyone knowing. But he also understood why she had kept it secret. People might have panicked. Earth Command might have tried to dismantle it. It was safer left unknown, sleeping beneath the soil. He asked her if the system could protect the colony. She didn't answer immediately. She looked at the ground, thinking deeply. Then she explained that activating the system carried risk. She had never tested it on a large scale. It might save them, or it might damage the colony's infrastructure. She couldn't guarantee the outcome. The governor felt the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. Outside, more lights streaked across the skyship's landing, drawing closer. Time was slipping away like sand through fingers. He looked at the researcher. She looked back, waiting. Finally, with a quiet, steady voice, he said, "Do it. If there is even the smallest chance it can protect our people, we have to try." She nodded. Without hesitation, she began preparing the system. Her hands moved quickly across the controls, entering codes she had memorized years ago. The room hummed with a deep vibration as hidden power lines slowly awakened after years of silence. Meanwhile, the colony continued gathering in small clusters, whispering, holding hands, watching the sky darken with shapes they didn't recognize. Fear spread softly, like a cold wind, but people tried to stay brave for their children and neighbors. No one knew that underground a long sleeping machine had just opened its eyes. No one knew that Eden 4, the colony the galaxy called weak, was about to change its fate forever, and the ships in the sky kept coming, unaware that they were approaching a place far less defenseless than it appeared. The researcher moved quickly once the governor gave his answer. It was strange to see her like this, focused, sharp, almost transformed. For years, she had lived like any other quiet resident of Eden 4, repairing tools, tending her garden, speaking softly to those who came to her for help. But now the peaceful mask had slipped away, revealing the person she used to be before she chose this quiet life. The governor watched as she opened a metal hatch in the floor and pulled out a small power cell glowing with faint blue light. She handled it carefully, as if it was something rare and delicate. The air in the room grew warmer as the energy from the hidden system hummed through the walls. He asked her again, gently, if the system was really safe. She didn't lie. She told him the truth, that the device had been built for extreme situations, the kind no colony ever wanted to face. She had designed it long ago to give small human settlements a chance to survive against stronger forces. But Earth Command had felt threatened by the idea. They didn't want something so powerful outside their control, especially in the hands of civilians. So the project was canceled. Her research was sealed. Her access was cut. And she had walked away from military science forever, tired of arguments, tired of warnings, tired of people deciding over and over again that safety should only belong to the powerful. When she came to Eden 4, she wanted to leave that life behind. But she couldn't completely. Some knowledge is impossible to forget. Some ideas refuse to die. Slowly, she rebuilt what she could, using scrap metal, old circuits, and whatever technology the colony no longer needed. Piece by piece, she created a hidden shield grid beneath the soil. Not a weapon, she hated that word, but a protector, something that could disarm without destroying, disable without harming. A force meant to give small places like Eden 4 a chance to stay alive long enough for help to arrive. But as the years passed, no danger ever came. The system stayed buried, silent, and unused. She almost believed she would never need it. Until now. Outside, the sky glowed faintly with moving lights. More of the alien ships were lowering, forming dark shapes against the stars. The colony had no idea what was happening beneath them. No idea that a buried network of energy coils, old generators, and hidden nodes was waking up, stretching like something that had slept too long. The governor listened to the low hum filling the workshop. It wasn't loud, but it felt heavy, vibrating through the air, through the ground, even through his chest. He asked how long it would take to activate the full system. She said it needed a few minutes. The governor felt relieved for a moment, until she added that the system needed to run at full power before the invaders reached the colony center. If they landed first, Eden 4 would be defenseless. She pressed several buttons on the panel, and a series of small lights blinked one by one. It looked almost like a heartbeat coming alive, pulsing stronger with each second. Blue lines traveled across the screen, showing the hidden grid beneath the farmlands and roads. She whispered something under her breath, not to him, not even to herself, but to the machine, almost like someone greeting an old friend she hoped she'd never have to see again. The governor stepped back, unsure if he should speak or stay silent. He felt helpless watching her work, but he trusted her more than anyone else on the entire colony. Eden 4 had always survived by trusting each other, and tonight would be no different. Meanwhile, back in the colony center, people had gathered in small groups near their homes. The volunteer guards moved between them, trying to stay calm, even though their hands shook slightly. They didn't have real weapons, just basic gear meant to scare off wild animals or signal for help. None of it would matter against real invaders. Children were being taken inside homes. Some whispered questions, but adults gave gentle answers, trying not to frighten them. Lights flickered inside houses as people checked their communication devices, hoping for a message from the governor, hoping for some reassurance that no one knew what was coming. No one understood what the ships wanted or why they'd chosen a peaceful place like Eden 4. Some said it was a mistake. Others said maybe the visitors only wanted to trade. A few quietly admitted they were afraid, but fear stayed mostly in quiet corners, held tight inside people's chests, not in their voices. The researcher worked faster, connecting power cells, adjusting controls, and bypassing old circuit locks she had built years ago. She explained everything to the governor as she worked, not because he needed to understand it, but because speaking kept her steady. She talked about energy pulses, frequency dampeners, and signal interference. He understood very little, but he listened carefully to every word. She explained that the grid was not meant to destroy anything. It would create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable systems within a certain radius. Machines, tools, weapons, anything advanced enough would shut down instantly. It was meant to give small colonies time to run, hide, or call for help. The governor finally asked the question he had been avoiding. What would happen to the colony itself? Would their own machines be affected? She paused before answering. The grid had been carefully designed to avoid harming power stations, life support systems, or basic colony technology. But she couldn't promise there wouldn't be side effects. Lights might flicker. Communication might fail for a few minutes. Some drones might shut down, but no lives would be in danger from the grid itself. Her voice was steady but soft. She hated the idea of causing even a moment of discomfort to the people she had grown to care about over the years. More lights flashed across the screen. The activation process was nearing completion. The hum beneath the colony grew stronger, deepening like a low note of music rising. Slowly toward the surface. The governor stepped outside for a moment to clear his head. The night air felt cool on his face. He looked up at the sky, now filled with small black shapes descending slowly and silently. They were close enough that he could see their lights blinking in patterns he didn't recognize. Eden 4 had never seen alien ships this close. He felt a heavy fear rising inside him. Not for himself, but for the people he had sworn to protect. He wished there was more he could do, something more dramatic, more heroic. But tonight, all he could do was trust in someone who had already given the colony more than they ever realized. Inside the workshop, the researcher tightened the last cable and stepped back. She took a slow breath, then pressed her hand against a circular device on the panel, a biometric key she had built so only she could activate the system. The hum changed pitch. Rising gently like a breath being drawn in, the governor stepped back inside, and she nodded once. "It's ready." He didn't know what to say. He simply nodded back and told her that the colony trusted her, even if they didn't know what she had done for them. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried many years of quiet regret and many more years of quiet hope. She said she didn't want thanks. She only wanted Eden 4 to stay safe. The grid beneath the colony began charging. Energy traveled through underground coils, powering up systems that had slept for years. The ground vibrated softly, as if the entire planet was stretching awake. Outside, the alien ships slowed, hovering above the colony outskirts. But before they could descend fully, a soft tremor moved through the ground, gentle, enough not to frighten anyone, but strong enough to signal that something old, powerful, and long hidden was beginning to rise. The colony still didn't understand what was happening, but they sensed that something beneath them was waking up, and above them, the invaders had no idea that Eden 4 was no longer the weak place the galaxy believed it to be. The secret grid was alive now, waiting for one final signal. The next morning on the colony began in a strange silence. Normally, the settlement woke up with soft noise, people walking toward the fields, children running to the learning hall, workers checking water lines or inspecting the solar panels on the hill. But on this day, the colony felt unusually quiet, as if the entire settlement was holding its breath, even though the invaders had been erased in only 7 minutes. The shock of the event remained heavy in everyone's mind. No one wanted to admit it, but fear had seeped deep into their thoughts. If one attack could happen, then another might follow. And no one wanted to be caught unprepared again. People gathered in small groups around the central plaza. Some were whispering, others staring at the sky as if expecting another ship to appear at any moment. The mist that usually hung around the far cliffs was still there, glowing softly in the early sunlight, but it felt less comforting now. It reminded everyone of how fragile their home actually was. The colony leader stood near the comms tower with tired eyes. He had barely slept, not because of fear, but because he had spent the whole night checking reports, reviewing the shield logs, and listening to worried messages from families inside their homes. He knew he had to speak to them soon, reassure them, even if he didn't fully know what would come next. But before he could address the crowd, he needed answers. He called for the defense team to gather in the operations room. The room was small, filled with holoscreens, a large table, and old, mismatched chairs that had been shipped from Earth long before the colony was built. Although the colony had always been peaceful and never expected trouble, they still maintained a small team responsible for scanning the skies and fixing the shield system whenever it malfunctioned. That was the same system that had unexpectedly saved them yesterday. When the team entered, the leader looked at each of them carefully. They were tired, two dark circles under their eyes, clothes still dusty, hair not brushed. But they stood ready, waiting for direction. What happened yesterday was not luck. The leader began, trying to hide the uncertainty in his voice. And I need to understand exactly what triggered the defense shield. Because if we don't know that, we can't protect ourselves in the future. The oldest member of the team stepped forward. He had spent most of his lifetime fixing machinery, and everyone trusted his calm thinking. He cleared his throat and said, "The system shouldn't have worked like that." The shield was old. Half of its circuits were damaged. It was supposed to give us a warning at best, not wipe out an entire attacking force. Another technician added, "We checked every log, every line of the system history." Something changed inside the core the moment the invaders started charging their weapons. It was like the shield woke up. The leader frowned. Woke up? Yes, the technician said. It behaved like it was waiting for a threat. And once it detected one, it reacted instantly with maximum force. More force than the original design even allowed. The room stayed quiet as the team exchanged confused glances. Finally, the youngest member spoke. "It's almost like someone updated the system without telling us." "But who?" Another worker asked. "We don't have anyone here with that level of engineering knowledge. And the old Earth companies that made these shields shut down years ago." The leader ran a hand across his face. The mystery only deepened the tension he felt inside. "Then we need to investigate every possibility. I won't let this colony rely on something we don't fully understand." Just then, an alert tone chimed softly from the main console. Everyone turned toward the screen, expecting another threat. A wave of fear rushed through the room. But instead of a warning, the screen showed a quiet blinking message. "Unknown signal detected. Not hostile." The leader leaned closer. "Where is it coming from?" The console operator tapped a few buttons. "It's near the outer forest. Same location where the shield surge originated yesterday." A nervous murmur filled the room. The forest was a beautiful place during the day, filled with towering blue-leaf trees and glowing insects that floated like tiny lanterns at night. But no one visited often. It was too far from the main settlement, and something about it always felt a little strange, like the air carried a faint whisper. The leader straightened his posture. "Prepare a small team. We're going to investigate." Some of the workers instantly hesitated. Going into unknown territory after what happened wasn't something they felt brave enough for. But the leader's steady voice calmed them. He wasn't reckless, everybody knew that. If he said he was going, others would follow. Within an hour, a team of 5 gathered at the colony gate, carrying scanners, lights, and basic tools. They didn't bring weapons. There were no real weapons in the colony, other than simple stun rods used to keep animals away from crops. The colony had been built with peace in mind, never expecting violent encounters. As the gate slid open, the group stepped outside. The morning sun had risen fully, lighting the dusty path ahead. For a long time, none of them spoke. Even the usual songs of the local bird-like creatures were missing. It was as if the entire planet was watching them. The forest came into view, its tall trees forming a wide arch over the path. Threads of pale blue light ran through the leaves, glowing faintly like veins in a living creature. The group paused at the entrance. The leader looked around, sensing something unusual in the air. "Stay close," he said softly. The deeper the team walked into the forest, the quieter everything became. No wind, no rustling leaves, no distant animal sounds. Only the soft crackle of their scanners echoed through the stillness. After several minutes, the youngest technician stopped walking. "Sir, I think we found it." Ahead of them, in a small clearing, Something was glowing beneath the ground. A round patch of soil pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat made of light. The glow wasn't threatening. It was gentle, almost calling to them. The leader stepped forward carefully. "Scan it." A scanner beeped repeatedly. "It's artificial. Man-made, but extremely advanced. And it's old, very old. Buried here, long before our colony even arrived. Could it be connected to the shield?" Someone asked. The technician nodded slowly. "I think it is the shield, or at least part of its power source." The group exchanged startled looks. "But the shield was installed by our colony founders," someone said. "Why would a power source be buried out here in the forest?" The oldest member of the team crouched down beside the glowing patch and brushed away some of the soil. His hand trembled slightly as he uncovered a metallic surface, smooth, silver, and humming with energy. "This is not Earth technology," he whispered. The words sent a chill down everyone's spine. If the shield had been running on something non-human, then the colony had never truly understood what was protecting them. Suddenly, the light beneath their feet pulsed brighter, and a soft vibration spread through the ground. The team instinctively stepped back. No one wanted to trigger anything dangerous. A round shape slowly rose from the soil, as if responding to their presence. It hovered a few inches above the ground, spinning silently. It didn't feel hostile, more like it was studying them. The leader raised a hand, signaling the others not to move. His heart pounded, but he kept his voice calm. "We're not here to harm you," he said, even though he didn't know if the object could understand. The hovering device projected a faint beam of light toward them, scanning them one by one. The beam was warm, not harmful. When it finished, the device stopped spinning and released a soft chime. A small panel opened on its surface, revealing a sequence of symbols. They weren't human letters, but something about them felt structured, like an instructions list or a message. The youngest technician whispered, "It's trying to communicate." The leader stepped closer, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I think this thing is the reason we survived yesterday." The device glowed gently, almost as if confirming his words. Everyone stood frozen, overwhelmed by the realization. The colony wasn't weak. It wasn't helpless. Something buried deep within the planet, something ancient, something advanced, had chosen to protect them. And whatever it was, it wasn't done yet. The leader took a long breath, finally understanding the weight of their situation. The shield was not just a system. It was a guardian. And now that guardian had awakened. But the awakening would not go unnoticed. Far above the planet, beyond the colony's quiet sky, someone or something had already detected the surge of power, and they were coming. For a long moment after everything ended, Eden 4 felt strangely silent. The air seemed lighter, almost delicate, as if the planet itself was trying to understand what had just happened. People slowly stepped out of their homes, unsure if it was really safe to come outside. The sky looked calm again. The strange lights were gone. There was no more humming in the ground. It was as if the danger had never existed. But everyone knew something extraordinary had happened. The governor walked through the colony center, noticing how people stared at him with quiet questions in their eyes. Children held on to their parents' hands. Volunteers who had tried their best to defend the colony stood near their posts, still shaken but relieved. The governor didn't want to overwhelm them with too much information, so he simply told them that the immediate danger was gone and they were safe for now. Those last 3 words, "safe for now," spread across the colony with a mixture of relief and curiosity. People wanted details, but he couldn't explain anything until he fully understood it himself. He returned to the researcher's workshop, where she stood quietly, adjusting a few controls on her panel. She looked calm, but her shoulders were slightly tense, as if she was still waiting for something to go wrong. When the governor stepped inside, She gave him a small nod. The grid had powered down successfully. The colony was stable. The emergency was over. But the consequences were only beginning. As time passed, people started asking questions. What had stopped the invaders? What caused the strange vibration in the ground? How had their weak colony survived something that should have destroyed them? Rumors spread quickly. Some said a natural phenomenon protected them. Others believed Earth Command had intervened secretly. A few whispered about the researcher, wondering if she had something to do with it. The governor decided not to reveal everything at once. He called a meeting with a small group of trusted residence people who had lived on Eden 4 for decades and understood the importance of peace. Inside the meeting room, he explained everything that had happened: the unknown fleet, their message, demanding surrender, the activation of the hidden system, and how the researcher had once worked on highly advanced technology. The room fell silent. Some of them were surprised. Others were worried. A few were simply grateful. But no one raised their voice. They understood that the researcher hadn't built anything for harm. She had built something to protect them when no one else would. One person asked if Earth Command would be angry. Another wondered if the invaders would return. The governor answered honestly. He didn't know. But he believed their best chance now was to stay calm, stay united, and not reveal too much. The more quietly they handled things, the safer the colony would remain. Outside the meeting room, the colony slowly returned to its routine. People repaired small damages, checked their devices, and comforted anxious neighbors. The children, unaware of the full danger they had just escaped, played their games again, though some looked up at the sky a little more often than before, as if expecting more lights to appear. For the first time in many years, Eden 4 felt awake in a new way. They were still simple farmers, workers, teachers, and families, but something inside them had changed. They now understood that even the smallest colony could survive something impossible. Even the weakest place could show strength no one expected. A few days later, a large ship approached the colony. This time, it was human. Earth Command had picked up unusual signals during the incident and sent a vessel to investigate. When the ship arrived, its officers stepped out with strict expressions, expecting damage, chaos, or signs of invasion. Instead, they found a calm colony with no visible harm. The Earth Command officers questioned the governor, the volunteers, and even a few settlers. They wanted to know why the signals had spiked, why there had been a burst of electromagnetic interference, and why an unidentified fleet had vanished without a trace. But no matter how they asked, the colonists gave the same answers. They didn't know what happened. They saw lights, they heard alarms, they felt a shockwave in the ground, and then everything stopped. The officers were confused, but they couldn't accuse anyone of lying. Eden 4 truly looked untouched. If anything dangerous had happened, it left no trace. Eventually, Earth Command turned their attention to the researcher. They had heard hints about her past work, and they were suspicious. They asked if she knew anything about the strange energy readings. She answered calmly, saying she had built a few devices for personal scientific research, but nothing harmful. Her voice remained steady, her eyes clear, her tone honest. They found no evidence to question her further. After a few days, the Earth Command ship left, still unsure of what exactly took place. The colony breathed a sigh of relief the moment it disappeared into the sky. Life slowly returned to normal. The farmlands awakened with planting season. Workers repaired fences and machines. Families prepared for upcoming harvest festivals. But the colony wasn't quite the same as before. People now felt a new sense of pride in themselves. The galaxy had always seen them as weak, but they knew the truth that strength didn't always come from armies, wealth, or technology. Sometimes strength came from hidden courage, old knowledge, and unity that outsiders couldn't understand. The governor visited the researcher often after that. He wanted to make sure she wasn't carrying the weight of the incident alone. She appreciated his visits, though she never said it directly. She continued working on small projects, fixing drones, improving water systems, and helping anyone who came to her door with broken tools or questions. But she also spent more time in her garden, watching the wind move across the soil, listening to the quiet sounds of the colony. She knew what they had avoided. She knew how close they had come to disaster. She also knew that one day someone else might try again, but she was not afraid. She believed in the people of Eden 4. She believed in their kindness, their resilience, their ability to stand strong, even when everyone expected them to fall. And she believed that if danger ever returned, the colony would meet it together, not as victims, but as people who had found unexpected strength. As weeks turned into months, stories about Eden 4 began spreading through human space. No one knew exactly what happened. Some said the invaders malfunctioned. Others claimed the solar storm protected the colony. A few more dramatic rumors said the colony might have a secret defense, but most people dismissed that idea. After all, Eden 4 was famous for weakness, not power. The colonists never corrected those rumors. They preferred to stay quiet, safe in their anonymity. They didn't want attention, they didn't want fear, and they didn't want Earth Command hovering over them. They just wanted peace. Over time, the incident became just another story, whispered in distant stations and trading routes. People laughed and said, "That small farming colony? No way they fought off anything." And Eden 4 smiled quietly behind their fields, letting the galaxy believe whatever it wanted. The researcher continued her simple life. Some evenings, she walked through the colony streets, watching families eat dinner outside, listening to soft laughter, seeing children run around the dusty paths. Those moments filled her with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She didn't need credit. She didn't need recognition. She didn't need her name in any report. All she wanted was this feeling, the sense that life was continuing peacefully, that Eden 4 was still the gentle place she chose long ago. The governor sometimes asked her if she planned to modify the grid or power it down permanently. She said she would update it, improve its safety, and keep it ready, not because she expected danger, but because peace often depended on quiet preparations no one ever saw. And so Eden 4 continued forward, a humble colony living quietly at the edge of human space. People planted seeds, fixed roofs, taught children, repaired old machines, and shared meals the way they always had. But now, beneath their feet, a silent guardian slept, ready to protect them again if the stars ever darkened with danger. They never bragged about what happened. They never claimed to be strong. But deep down, every person on Eden 4 carried a quiet truth. They were not weak anymore. They had faced the impossible and survived. And no matter what the galaxy believed, they knew the strength that lived within their small, forgotten world.